Hey, Total Schmidt Show, how you doing? Thanks for being here. I'm on the Celebrity Apex, an absolutely beautiful and stunning ship. I got to spend a couple weeks here, and I'll be back here in a few weeks to do a couple more weeks. And this week I ran into Craig Meyer, who was on the show. He does a show called Remember When Rock Was Young. Obviously, it's an Elton John tribute show. He's one of the best, if not the best at it. And he's done numerous things over his career. We talk about it here on the podcast. This was a great episode, man. He's been around a long time. He's done a lot of stuff. He's been working since 1982, one way or another. He's union actor in theater and SAG and all that stuff. He's done TV, film, worked for Disney, tours the world. He's been a working entertainer for over 40 years. And he had amazing insights on building a career, doing a show, and all the things that we do on a ship. And we talk about it here. So sit back and enjoy my conversation with the one and only Craig Meyer. Total Schmidt Show Season 3 is upon us. Tune in every week. I talk to entertainers from all over the world. Singers, dancers, comics, musicians, drummers, blah, blah, blah. All kinds. Techs, even some cruise directors. Most of the entertainers I talk to work on cruise ships. If you ever wanted to know what entertainers do, how they get through their day, any of the behind-the-scenes stuff about entertaining, we'll talk about that stuff here, as well as we'll delve into some of the entertainers and some of their works, some of their albums coming up, some of the things they've done in the past, things you can look forward to in the future. All that stuff you can catch here on Total Schmidt Show. But either way, get yourself a pizza, a beer, some bourbon, light up a cigar, or some sort of joint, or whatever type of crutch or vice you need to get through the evening, and sit back and enjoy whatever it is I put together this week on You're welcome. That's cool, man. I like to talk to other entertainers that do what we do, because I don't think anybody knows what goes into what we do.
I think some entertainers out here don't know what they do either. At least from evidence from their shows.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, you said that I didn't.
I stand by my words.
Yeah, I stand by your words. But no, yeah, a lot of people don't understand. And that's another thing we can bring up now, because you've been around a long time. You've been with ships.
Thanks for pointing that out.
You look great, by the way. You look great for your age.
Thanks.
But you're a seasoned performer, because there's a lot of new entertainers coming out on ships.
Yeah. And
a lot of different shows coming on ships.
Yeah.
And a lot are great, and some I don't understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I call it the Astaire principle. Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly and all those performers back in the day made what they did look effortless. People thought they could walk out of the theater and dance in the rain or dance upstairs or whatever. And that comes from being so good at what you do that people go, well, I can do that.
Right.
And this industry, ships have sort of taken the place of the variety houses and the burlesque shows and the vaudeville circuit, and
sure.
And it's kind of a mill. Some people show up and they get burnt out very quickly. Some people have longevity, like us, where we've been around a while because we're good at what we do and we have the reputation for delivering to an audience every time. But there's always new people coming into the scene and other people looking to break in. And not everyone is cut out for it. Not everyone who's done a cabaret show in New York in a small space knows how to handle a theater with 1,000 people or 2,000 people. Right. I've seen some people in the past few months that have come out who are coming out of New York. They've worked the Metropolitan Room, well, it's not around anymore, but Studio 54, small clubs, and they're used to having a small combo behind them. And they come out on stage and they've got a single microphone in the stand and they stay behind the microphone stand.
Right.
Some of them have a music stand with their iPad with notes on it.
I've seen that, yeah.
And it's like, guys, you've got to engage the audience. The first thing that you have to do, in my opinion, when you start your show is figure out how you, in your performance, are going to throw your arms around the audience and go, it's going to be okay.
Well, that's great.
I know you don't know who I am. It's kind of like, I also talk about, it's like a first blind date.
Yeah.
You don't show up at the door and go, hey, let's French kiss. You're like, hi, this is who I am. It's going to be all right. It's a safe place to be. We're just going to have some fun. Let's just see how the evening goes.
Right.
You've got to be able to you got to be able to convince the audience that they're going to have a good time, it's going to be safe. And if you can do that and they can relax and let them know that while it's safe, you're also in control, they're going to have a great time.
Right. That's. I can't think of a better way to put it. One of the things I look at it as a stand-up comic for me is I try to look at it like it's a big party, and I'm just kind of the guy talking.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So you do, like, I work the crowd, and I get a little aggressive with them, but not aggressive, and I like them aggressive with me.
Yes.
It's the same thing, but there's a difference between working a room with 1,000, 1,200 people and working a club with 8 to 10, 20, 30 people or whatever. And a lot of people don't understand the bridge or the change. You know what I mean? And live performance to me is always the biggest thing. It's like, I love live performance. It's so much better to see a live show. It just and we both done TV, we both done film, we done whatever.
Yep.
But a live show, I always call it a living, breathing thing. And you're right, things happen when you're on stage, and you get to work off the audience. And with them, it's a big group. You're like riding a wave.
And they're the other part of the performance.
Show. Right? Yeah.
Yes. You without an audience, it's just another dress rehearsal.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So having them there is the catalyst that shifts everything. For my show, I have a set list that I've been doing for 15 years.
Okay.
I found the flow for my show. I found where to put the pressure on, take the pressure off, so that it is like riding a wave, and I get the response at the end of the show that I'm looking for.
Right.
I have such respect for stand-ups because you can put together your set list in your room, in your hotel room, in your cabin, and figure out, this is what I'm going to do, this is the run of the show that I'm going to do, and you get out there, and the audience, like, you take a left turn at Albuquerque, and then a U-turn at Amarillo, and you don't know where you are.
I'm like, oh, whatever.
And sometimes it works out great, and sometimes you go, how did I end up here? But the high wire act that stand-up is, I don't think I have the guts for.
Yeah.
I have such respect for the people that go out there and, again, make it look effortless.
Yeah.
The people who think, I can do 10 minutes at a club. No, you can't.
Yeah.
You might have 60 seconds of material that you think you could do 10 minutes. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And that might not be in all 60 seconds. It might be 2 seconds here, 3 seconds here, 4 seconds here.
Yeah.
There was a TV show. There was a show on Amazon Prime called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, I know that show.
And it was about the housewife who became a stand-up. And bless the actor whose name has gone out of my head, who played the role. She understood. She's like, look, I'm not a stand-up. I have incredible writers that are writing for me. I've got an audience on camera that's reacting to what I'm saying. She understood that playing the character was not being a stand-up person.
Right.
Because stand-up, again, it's a high wire act without a net, and such respect.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's fun. I mean, I've been doing stand-up in general. I've been doing over 30 years, but the ships I've been doing maybe 10 or 12, somewhere around there. But I usually know how I'm going to close the show and how I'm going to open. And then anything in between. So I'll do, for me, it's a time thing. I'll get with the crowd, I'll be talking to them, but then I'll look and I go, okay, I got 8 minutes to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So I got to get back in. But then sometimes you don't, and you got to figure out how to close it on the fly.
And that's another thing that you developed, and stand-ups like you who have such a free-form art thing, you've got to have that inner clock.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be looking at your phone or your watch, but you've got to know, it's like, okay, I know how long I've been on stage, I know how much more I've got to go, and how to then literally dock the boat.
Right.
For that show so that it comes in and you've got that great kiss-off line where it's like, boom, laugh, I'm Lenny Schmidt, good night. Yeah.
Well, I know how long my bits are, so if I'm not into the crowd,
okay,
I can do a bunch of stuff and go, I'm at the 22-minute mark right now, and just know it. But once I go into the crowd, it depends on how long I'm in there, that's when I get lost. And I got to look at, what I do is I put my phone down on the stool, and grab my water next to the phone. I have a time, so then I look and then just get back.
Yeah,
because sometimes I love talking to the crowd. Sometimes I love it more than others, and sometimes it gets crazy. And sometimes there's people that are more fun. There's a girl last cruise, Julia, who's fine.
I saw that show.
Oh, did you? You were here.
Crazy.
That's right, you were here. That's right.
She was crazy.
She was for 2 shows. She did it. The first family show.
See, she came back. Oh, she came to late night.
Right. Well, she didn't come to late night, and when I referred to her in the late night, I had no idea she was going to go off again, and it turned off to do another thing, and I kind of made fun of that. And then everybody knew she was at that point. Anyway.
She was looking for attention.
She was okay. She was fun. She was still fun. She was fun to a point where I liked it.
Good.
Where it wasn't like, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have referred to it the second time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're lucky that Connor didn't come back.
He did.
Oh no,
well,
he did.
But he didn't say anything until late in the show. And I looked back and I said, and I called him out then. He was sitting in the same seat, and I just didn't catch him. And sometimes it's hard for me to remember these names.
Oh,
I don't know how I do it. You know what? I'm pretty good with it on stage.
Yeah.
Off stage, I'm terrible.
Dude, I have always had a problem with names. I know a face, can't come up with a name. And when I do my shows, whether it's on land or ships, I always thank the tech crew. I write their names down either on my sheet or on my phone during the day. And at the end of the show, I can call them out by name, which I think is important.
Right.
But like the next day, I'd be like, "Gah," or the next week, I'd be like, who was it? Which is why in my phone, I have every venue I've ever played.
Oh,
and I've got all the names of the people.
It's hard to do with ships, though, because they move.
Right. But I've got the name and the position, cruise director, music director, all the musicians' names, because I can then go back and go, oh, is that, I know that I'm going to be working with so-and-so, and I go, oh, good, they were a good drummer.
Right.
Or, oh, not
it's harder.
Great...
It's more difficult, or not difficult for you, but more involved for you.
Yes.
Because you work with the band.
Yeah.
Yes. Or the orchestra.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to know all, and which that also helps you, though. Because then if you show up and you're like, oh, I'm working with this MD, oh, he's got it down. I know this will be good. This will be easy.
Or I have to brace and clench.
Or you're like, I got to bring some extra charts. It's going to be a whole thing.
Listen, with the way things are now, I use QLab for my show, which is a program that allows you to do stems. So I can, earthquake!
Yeah, we're coming in.
QLab is a music program, and Q program, you can do light, sound, everything from it. And the major Broadway shows use it. You can do camera cues. A lot of magicians use it for...
Do you use it for your... On land you use it?
I do. If I'm doing a show where I don't have my full band with me,
right,
or I'm doing a solo and track show, I use QLab. And with the stems, the different tracks, I can have drums, bass, guitar, keys, horns, singers, all on different stems. And the guy... The tech running the sound can mix the show live with those instruments.
Oh, that's so cool. We were just talking about technology before we started this.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so there have been times when I've gotten to a ship where they're down a horn, or I've had them missing a guitar player or bass player or whatever, and I could go, not a problem, and I arm those tracks, and I now have that thing
that's
playing.
So cool for you.
And then there are times when the guitar player can't play some of the riffs in my show.
Right.
So I arm that track, and
or you're
I'm
missing
covered.
a horn or something. You know what I mean? You need that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna make your life so much easier.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
The preparation it takes to have the stems, the time and investment to do that, and then also the technical knowledge to work QLab. It's a very steep learning curve.
Okay.
And there's so many, and they just changed it last year to QLab 5, and they moved things around. New Year's Eve, I was at a club doing my show, and I could not remember how to initiate the screens in QLab 5. Okay. I knew how to do it in 4, but I couldn't remember in 5, and it took me quite a while and quite a bit of angst to go, oh wait, that's right. I've got to go here first to create this, and then I'll be able to see it here. And I got it, but it was, again, technology. When it works, it's a great thing, and when it doesn't, you're like, ugh.
Yeah. But that's the modern day equivalent of almost like the old roadside show when you were in the Old West, where you pulled up and opened up a stage.
Yes.
And you just did a show, like a medicine man. And you had the whole thing, and almost like the wizard with the stuff behind the scene. You know what I mean? Where you're doing, because you could show up to town and do a whole show. You know what I mean? And get in and out with very little overhead and people. I'm
literally right now negotiating a gig, a private event for June of this year in Thousand Oaks, Ventura.
Okay.
Some people saw me on another cruise and said, hey, we're celebrating my wife's 70th birthday. We'd love to have you as the entertainment. And so yesterday had a call with the guy who's doing the party, and a sound backline guy up in Ventura, and talked through the rider and talked about, bringing my computer and my audio interface, and I need 8 quarter-inch plugs that go out to your board, and just sort of putting all of that in order. Yeah. And so it will be a solo and track show. Right. It'll be me and a piano, probably a keyboard with a shell. Right. But it'll sound like I've got my entire band there.
Sure, right, yeah. How great is that?
Yeah.
Which will blow them away.
Yes.
Talk about making it look easy. You know what I mean? People will be like, "Oh, that's great. The way that looks great. I could do that." You know, that's which is part of our job is to show them, make it look simple.
And then there are times where I'm doing a show in May up in Michigan, doing my Elton Billy Berry show, and I'll have 3 live sidemen with me. I'll have bass, drums, guitar, and then me. But on my tracks, I'll have the keys, the background vocals, and my horns.
Right.
So
okay.
Yeah, we didn't tell anybody what I do.
Oh, I should just jump into it, but go ahead, man.
I have a show called Remember When Rock Was Young, the Elton John Experience.
Yeah.
And I've spent the last 16 years traveling the world wrapped in spandex and glitter.
Well, I looked at your IMDb and all that stuff before we started. Just because once we had dinner and talked, I was like, oh, this guy's got a lot going on. You know what I mean? So I checked out a lot of it. But man, but yeah, that's great. The Elton thing is it's phenomenal, man. It's called what do you call it? The show?
The show is called Remember When Rock Was Young,
right.
The Elton John Experience, and my website is www.almosteltonjohn.com.
I love the way you give that on stage too. It's brilliant because people remember it.
It happened sort of organically. But the first time that I did it, but there's a thing about 3s.
Yes.
And so that's why I say it 3 times, and then the third time I have the audience say it with me.
Yeah.
And it imprints. And when people say, well, do you have a business card? I'm like, but you know where to find me, don't you? And I'm like, www. And they go, almost Elton. I'm like, that's right.
There you go.
So,
that's smart. I got to start doing that. I could do that with Mr. Lenny Schmidt.
You could.
Yeah, that's smart. That's clever. Yeah, you're right. The 3s, that's impressive. Well, where do you go from here? Where do you go next? We talked about that. Well,
yes. So, getting off this week, going home for a week, and we've got.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, home for a week, which is
Atlanta, right?
Yes, Atlanta, Georgia, and we've got a show the 26th at the Carolina Opry in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That will be my Piano Men show. I've got an actor that plays Billy Joel with me. Okay. So it's Billy Joel and Elton John face to face.
Oh, right on. Oh, that's cool.
Great show. In addition to my regular band, we add the Billy Joel character and a saxophone player, which is always fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I get to be with my family. My band, the majority of the people in my band have been with me 10 years or more.
Oh, that's great.
And we've really, it's a great environment. We love each other really well. We have a lot of different viewpoints and political viewpoints and religious viewpoints, but we all get along great. And we have what we call rocket band roundtables, either at breakfast or at dinner, where, literally we're trying to solve the world's problems and discussing. Right. But we'll also get into discussions about prog rock and synthesizers and geopolitical things. It's just it's such a crazy group of people that have made this family.
And you get along.
Yeah.
So that's what's missing today is people that can have different points of view and sit down and have a conversation and bounce ideas off each other and still go out and have dinner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of sad that I live in LA, it's very hard left there. And I'm really middle. It's weird. I have some things that are right, some things are left. I don't talk about politics on my show at all. Sometimes I make fun of the fact that we can't handle politics because
you can't handle politics.
Yeah, you can't handle politics. But we reached a point where people can't have different points of view and get along anymore. So it's kind of cool that you guys still can do that.
Yeah.
That's great.
I left LA almost 20 years ago.
Okay.
After being born and raised there for the majority of my life.
Right.
And then moved back in 85 from being all over the world.
Right.
And was there for 20 plus years as my home base. But from there did national tours and Broadway and concert tours and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
When people ask, well, what part of California? I'm like, well, as far south as San Diego, as far west as Venice, as far north as Montrose, and as far east as Pasadena.
Yeah, okay.
So it's kind of like, it's not even a parallelogram.
That's the exact shape. That's a really good, that's like a shield.
Yes.
It's like a shield. I like that.
Captain America.
One of the cool things about being out here in the ships, one of the reasons I do the show is I'm amazed how many people show up at these shows and have never seen live shows. So it's their first introduction to whether it's comedy or anything.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to see people talk to them or see them after the show because they're blown away by how great a show is on a ship sometimes.
Yeah. I've been an equity actor for decades. My first union card was my SAG card. I got it at 13. And when I did my first equity show, my dressing room partner gave me a card for opening night that said, always remember, someone out there is seeing a show for the first time, and someone is seeing a show for the last time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I take that with me on stage every night,
Right.
and especially here on the ships, because on different runs and different seasons, you might have 5 generations on the boat. Especially like, during the summer season or Alaska season, where you've
Breaks
got
and stuff,
you've got grandma and grandpa, their kids, and possibly their kids.
Right.
So you've literally got great-grandchildren and great-grandparents on board.
Yeah.
And they're at the show, and one of those kids might be seeing a show for the first time, a music show or a comedy show. And I know that there are people that have gone home after those events, and someone in their family has passed away, and their last memory of going out and being with their family could have been at my show or your show.
Yeah.
And so there's that makes it kind of special.
Yeah.
It elevates what we do from just being the sideshow and the Wizard of Oz to something that actually has meaning and is very, very important for people.
Right, and it kind of goes on top of what we were talking about earlier, how it making it a show means something. Making it like a real show.
Yes.
Not just going on stage for 45 minutes. Like we're talking about newer entertainers coming in, and I see it, especially with comics. It seems like they bring a lot of comics out that are really new to a ship and don't know how to work a big room.
Yeah.
But then a lot of times they don't understand the crowd. Like this is you're talking about 5 generations. They're also all over the place politically and religiously and everything.
Yep.
So to entertain them with comedy, it's you can't blame the crowd. Well, I see it a lot where they go, "Wow, this crowd's tough." I go, "Yeah, but you got to figure out how to play them."
A good craftsman never blames his tools.
Yeah, that's true.
And a good comic never blames his audience.
No, it's true. Or you're in a position where you can demand your own audience, but then you're not doing chips. I mean, your job out here is basically you're entertaining for people that don't know who you are most of the time.
That in and of itself is something that is hard for me out here, because they usually want to bill me as headliner Craig A. Meyer.
Right.
And I'm like, please don't do that. Please use the title of my show.
Yeah,
because no one cares about Craig A. Meyer. They really don't. My mom did. She's in heaven now. I know she still loves me. But she's the only... And my sisters were on board last week. I'm sure they were pleased to see my name on the marquee. But that's why I want them to use the title of my show, because...
Right.
And that's why the ships themselves don't bill their singers and dancers, as the stars of the production show.
Right.
The production show has a title, because even though you might not know what Crystallize is, it's like, oh, well, it sounds like something that I might want to go see.
Go check it out.
Remember when rock was young, the Elton John experience? You're like,
exactly.
I know what I'm going to get. I know that I'm going to go see Elton John songs. If I don't like Elton John, I probably shouldn't go. But Craig A. Meyer? Who's Craig A. Meyer? No one, I know who I am. I have a very great career. I'm enjoying my life, but no one knows my name.
Right.
And I never went the America's Got Talent route or the American Idol route. They tried to get me on for years. I was like, look, I know at some point you're going to submarine me, because that's just how you guys do these things.
Right.
But, the title of the show, again, is if you've got a good, strong title for your performance, that will at least give people an idea of what you're doing and will cause people to come in.
Right.
And I've seen that happen with other guest entertainers whose name is on the marquee, and they'll have a good audience, but it's not full.
Right.
I have noticed that when people know that they're going to hear Elton John music, they're going to show up for that. And I totally get it, that they've come in the door because of Elton John's name,
right?
But it's my job to keep them there.
Right.
And it's my job to entertain them, so that by the end of the evening, they're like, that was really fun.
That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your show's got a great build to it.
Thanks.
It's really paced. The pacing of it is like perfect.
Thank you very much.
It comes out like high energy. You get him in, and then you bring it down a little bit, but you close really strong, and it's a really good pacing.
Thanks. I credit that to the masters that I worked with over the years of my career at Disney and on Broadway and on national tours. I watched, especially at Disney in my early years. My first job out of school was at Walt Disney World in 1982, and I was a no-name little kid, but got to work with these incredible show producers and directors at Disney, and then worked with Disney for decades all around the world, and watched these people craft shows that took that Disney magic, and by the end of the show, the people were like, they were covered in the pixie dust.
Yeah, yes.
And but that was
that's kind of that was the magic
brief
of Disney. You're right.
That was the brief. The brief is if you're inside our walls, our job is to cover you in pixie dust so that you feel that Disney magic.
Yeah.
And knowing how, again, I also come from a theater background. A piece of theater has an opening, and I want song. There's a lot of different other things that can happen, but then it builds, and you have an 11 o'clock number and a great big close.
Right.
That's the format of my show, whether it's the 45-minute show here on the ship, the 2-hour show on land with my band, or with a symphony orchestra.
Sure.
It has a flow and a build. Pressure goes on, pressure comes off. It allows the audience to do this and then go, okay, I can sit back and enjoy this, and then build it up and then rev the engine so that by the end of the show, they're like, that was great.
Right.
I had a great presenter early on say, always leave them sweating.
Oh, that's good. I like that. That's all right. I kind of follow that same thing. Cause either with stand-up, it's just as similar. Because guys, I mean, you do when you're in LA, you're doing 10-minute spots.
Yep.
You're doing 20-minute spots, and the proper structure of stand-up is normally to open a show for 10 or 15. Middle guy does 30, which is kind of the easiest money spot, and the headliner does 45 or whatever.
Right.
But when you go from doing a 30-minute show to a 45-minute show, you have to understand. And I'm a high energy guy. It took me a while to understand I can't be high energy for 45 minutes.
No.
It's insane.
It'll kill you.
It'll kill you. I mean, you watch Robin Williams do an hour, and even Robin's got a slow down point. He's got the arc. You gotta do that. It's almost the same emotional flow through a stand-up show, where you come in hard, and then you joke around, you get them in, and then I do some stuff that my opinionated stuff, whatever opinionated stuff I have, bring it into a crowd connection thing, and then close on an up note. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people miss with stand-up, where they'll go out there and they don't have the pacing to a 45-minute show.
Yep.
There's something about the emotional feel of it. It's just like we were talking the other day about the hero's journey. You're programmed to watch a show or feel the show the certain way.
Yes.
So when you see a 45-minute or an hour-long show, if the structure's off, it's going to mess up your head.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do well, unless you're a brilliant performer somehow, and you have your own style, which is...
Right, but those people are few and far between. And even going back to Robin Williams, if you go back to his original HBO special at the Roxy, it's amazing. Yeah. But he's so coked up, like he's coming out of the dressing room going, but
sweating.
Oh, it's like, woo! But even in there, he's like bit, and then he's like, oh. And all of a sudden it's like, shoo, and it gets really quiet, and then he's talking with the audience like this. But then it builds back up. Yeah,
well, he did the training, Juilliard. He knew the pattern to
with
play
Christopher
it.
Reeve. I just watched the Christopher Reeve documentary.
Oh, I was going to watch it the other night.
Oh, it's so good. I think I knew this way back when, but they were roommates at Juilliard.
No way.
And they were very close all the way to the end.
Oh no, I didn't know
And in
that.
fact, Glenn Close at one point in the documentary says that if Chris was still alive, she thinks that Robin would still be alive too.
Wow, that's powerful.
And he's been gone 10 years.
Forever, yeah, a long time.
10 years now.
Yeah.
So but again, it goes back to the basic building blocks of theater. And this goes back to Greek. It goes back to the original building blocks. I was talking about this. We talked about this at dinner the other night.
Yeah.
How Lin-Manuel Miranda, one of the really, really great Broadway composers right now, everybody loves his work and thinks he's so revolutionary. And his idioms are revolutionary, but his building blocks are classic music theater. He literally, his shows are built like a Rodgers and Hammerstein, Rodgers and Hart, Lerner and Loewe show with the building blocks that you have for a great piece of music theater. And that, in addition to his great writing, is what I believe makes his shows so strong and so great. But for some reason, people have not connected that up to what he does. Because they want to see him as this innovator. And I appreciate that. And his idioms with the rap music and everything are innovative. But his building blocks are classic music theater.
Well, that's the again, we were talking about this at dinner. That's the creative side of using that format or using that tool to do your show.
Exactly.
Let's go to The Matrix. When The Matrix came out, everybody talked about how that was groundbreaking. And when you tear it down, it's the hero's journey.
It is.
It's to a T.
Up to and including when he is on the tracks with the agent.
Yeah.
And he says, that, Mr. Anderson, is the sound of your destiny.
Yeah.
And he says, my name is Neo. And that gives him the impact.
That's the breakthrough, right?
And that's what really then, after the almost defeat, to then come back to defeat them completely.
Yeah, and it's perfect. I mean, the way you watch it, it's really brilliant. It is, but it's a brilliant way of portraying, using that technique to get the movie. And I mean, that's why that format will never die. You know, it's same thing with live shows. And when you do a live show, there's a certain feel to a live show. People don't even notice it. If you're doing it really well, nobody knows. We know it because we're in it.
It goes back to that austere principle.
Yeah.
You make it look effortless.
Right.
And
so you know what you're doing.
And then, any Joe on the street or Jane on the street is like, oh, I could do that. It's like,
Right.
no, you can't. You really can't.
Right.
It takes a lot of skill. I've seen a lot of, I've made the mistake myself early on when I put together my first club show, cabaret show. There was some building blocks in there, but I really included a lot of songs that I liked.
Right.
It was like, I want to sing these songs. It's like, yes, but does the audience want to hear you sing these songs?
Yeah, right.
That's
a good point.
When I'm coaching performers to help them with their shows, one of the main questions I ask is, why do I want to spend an hour with you?
Right.
Why do I want to be here?
Right.
What is it about what we're doing right now that makes me want to stay and sit here to listen to you sing and talk to me, or tell me an hour or 45 minutes of stories about your life or whatever? And if you can find that why, that unlocks a lot of answers.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm giving away trade secrets here. When I'm
people
coaching,
are watching the show feverishly writing down,
I'm in! Some of the mistakes that performers do is they take away the audience's opportunity to discover something.
Right.
Now, with stand-up, they're pretty much discovering all the time because hopefully your bits are original and no one has heard your bits unless they've seen your show before.
Right.
But for a singer, there are only so many songs. And unless it's an original song, which is a very risky thing to do on stage at any time, they're going to know the songs that you're going to be performing. People come to my Elton John show, they know they're going to hear what? Elton John songs.
Sure.
However, in my show, I regularly get what is called recognition applause. I start a song and people go,
right.
And it's not because I'm so brilliant at what I do. It's that I've given them enough information that when I play that first measure of music, they automatically go, I know this song.
You don't go, here's Candle in the Wind. You do, you lay it out.
But here's the thing. So many people will, the greatest sins you can do is tell me the name of the song and tell me how I'm supposed to feel. This next song, my grandmother loved this song. She would sit and listen to me sing, and she would cry every single time because she just felt so deeply about this song and about me.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, you've literally drained every bit of drama out of what you're going to do. Because you've told me how you want me to feel. So if I don't cry, I'm somehow not giving you what you've told me I must give you in order to make this worthwhile for you, the performer, when you're really supposed to be here for me, the audience. And you've told me the name of the song. So if you hadn't, and you started with the note, and you just started, when all the world, it's like, oh, she's going to do Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yeah.
And that gets the excitement up. So it's, that's secret sauce.
That's such a clever way to look at that. That's a true, you know what I mean? That's a live performer thing. That's what we're talking about, building a live show. That's brilliant. You know what I mean? You're right. You give them a time to create in their mind or to discover and find stuff.
Yeah.
That's so smart, man.
Yeah. You want to give them enough information so that they feel comfortable with what you're going to do.
Right.
But not so much that they're like, oh, well, I know what's going to happen now.
Right.
With a magician, Josephine Lee was on last night.
Right.
If she told you
the
secret and how it was going to end, you'd be like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
Again, doing magic is a hard thing. There are only so many tricks. There are only so many illusions you can do.
Yeah, dude.
But you got to find different ways to do them.
Well, that's the key to the magician. That's the art of the magician.
Yeah.
Is the performance.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of these tricks. I see almost everyone do.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, but they've got a great twist or the way they explain it or
Yeah.
whatever. And you're like, oh, it's great. It's good.
Yeah.
I think she does with the quotes last night is great.
Yeah, that was very
really
interesting
nice.
and cool with the black light string
Sure.
and it coming together,
Dynamite.
which then mimicked the string, the writing on the
Yeah,
screen.
it was really
and everything.
clever.
Yeah.
And then she used the actual quotes. That screen helps her too.
Yeah.
The big screen,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah. I consider myself an illusionist as well, because an illusionist creates a plausible diversion over here while they do something over here.
Okay.
And my show, as Almost Elton John, is an illusion.
Right.
I create a plausible diversion for the audience to hear Craig A. Meyer sing the music of Elton John. Because, again, going back to the marquee, no one cares about Craig A. Meyer.
Right.
But they care about Elton John.
Right.
And so that gets them in the door, but then I've got to convince them that
Yeah, but it's also a double-edged sword because, well, if you're not, you got to be good. You know what I mean? You've got to be.
Got to deliver.
If people are coming to see Elton John, if you're not good, the 2 songs are out the door.
Yes.
I mean, I saw someone do Queen once, and it was not good. It was one of the worst things I ever saw.
That's a hard catalog.
It's a hard one.
Whether you're performing as Freddie Mercury or just doing the songs.
Yeah.
Those are hard.
They had a good
songs.
guitarist, and that's, you know what I mean? That kind of helped them. But with Queen, it's so vocal. It's all, you know.
It's all vocal.
Yeah, it's all. That's their whole.
He had that freakish voice and all those teeth in his mouth.
Yeah, and the more you listen to Queen, the more you realize how innovative of a band they were.
They
did
amazing.
Everything from rockabilly to blues to, I mean, some of their stuff is really insane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to be able to tackle that. But that's the point. When people come to see a tribute band, like I'm a big Van Halen fan. There's a couple of Van Halen tribute bands in LA. Atomic Punk, you might remember them if you lived in LA. Yeah. But that guitarist bounced, I think he ended up on Steel Panther.
Oh, okay.
And you might have heard Steel. I'm sure you heard of them if you lived in LA too. But
but
it was the same thing. They had to be good and deliver, because if you went and saw them, you're like, they were terrible.
Yeah. So much bad art out there.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons I've always kind of appreciated Ships for years. Is for the most part, if you didn't do well out here, you didn't stay out here very long. Okay. All right. I'm not going to name any names, but
I listen.
Most of the people I've seen have been very great.
I've seen a fair amount of shows that I would say are past their sell date.
Okay.
they've outlived their shelf life.
Well, I've seen some new shows some newer ones where you're like, oh, that's not going to work.
No, I've seen shows that have been out for a long time, and I'm like, well, first of all, how did that sell in the first place? Second of all, how are you still working? And then I have to go, well, they probably their rate probably is pretty low, and so they're affordable.
Yeah, that's a nice justification. Well, they're cheap. They're thinking when they fill the we only got this in the budget. Call Tommy.
But that's the truth.
I know.
Every week they've got a certain number of ducats that they can spend on their entertainment, and so they've got to look at, okay, well, you know, the different price points, and they're like, okay, well, we can either have, you know, $2,000, $3,000 shows, or, you know, a $3,000 and a $1,500 and a $1,500.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
Yeah. Right. And also it depends on the length of these cruises. I think the longer you're on a cruise, I think you're dealing with more professional cruisers.
Yes.
Like a 3 or 4 day is a whole different animal.
I can't
imagine you would do those.
I don't do anything under 5 now.
Yeah.
I don't like 5, but 3 and 4 days, they're not there. They are they're opportunist cruisers,
right?
Because they probably live in the port city,
right.
And 2 days before the trip, the ship line is trying to fill as many cabins as possible.
It's almost like papering the room.
So they buy $200 ticket, and then they expect them to buy a $900 drink package.
Sure,
because that's where they make their money.
Right. Well, I know a couple in Long Beach, and every weekend they live there, and they just go down and hang at the port.
Yep.
And right before they sail, they go, "You got anything?"
Yep.
And they get on, and they go, "We don't buy the drink package."
Yep.
And he goes, "And sometimes we don't even get off in Mexico.
Yeah.
We hang out, or we spend the whole day in Mexico.
Yeah.
It costs us, between the two of us, $600 for the weekend.
Yeah.
To eat all day long." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's brilliant. Why wouldn't you do it?"
Yeah. Those audiences are not there for the shows.
Right.
7-day cruisers are people that are regular cruisers.
Sure.
And so the audiences will usually be pretty good. Here on Celebrity, the audiences know that the entertainment is going to be strong. So they're mostly going to show up for those shows.
Right.
On anything over 9 days, you've got people that are, this is what we do.
Yeah.
They're either very wealthy and they've got the time and the money to take time off, or they're retired or semi-retired, and they've chosen the line for a reason.
Sure.
They're there for the food and the entertainment, whether it's Royal Caribbean or Princess or Holland America.
Yeah, they're
or
not
whatever.
taking a shot.
There's all. It's interesting how many cruise lines there are.
Right.
Even though they're owned by 2 or 3
companies that own
main companies that own the lines, and they all have their different brands within there.
There's people that love Celebrity but hate Royal. And you're
Correct.
like, same thing with Carnival. Princess, whatever.
But Carnival owns Princess. You would think that Princess owns Carnival, but Carnival owns Princess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And because of, well, you go back to Kathy Lee Gifford and how they capitalized on the Love Boat, and they were the fun ships and whatever. But within the Royal Caribbean stuff, Celebrity is a higher end product and more expensive.
Yeah.
But Royal Caribbean is their family line.
Right.
And they do that really well.
Right.
Their ships they're a big theme park.
See, I've never been on Royal.
Oh, so Royal has really invested in, especially with their mega ships that they brought out.
Right.
It's a theme park.
Well, they've got Carnival does the kind of.
But I think Royal does it better than Carnival.
Okay.
Because the entertainment standards are higher, the execution is better. On the mega ships they've got Central Park with a carousel, and then they've got a water park at the back, and they've got an aquatic show. They've really taken the elements of a Disney and a SeaWorld and actual theme park elements and placed them on their ships.
Right.
The parachute thing, the air tunnel, the Odyssey arm that goes over the ocean. I know.
No, thank you. I'm not a fan of either. I won't even walk in those tunnels where you can see the glass.
Oh, really?
I won't even do that. I'm like, ooh, I'm good.
Oh, I can't see that.
It's too much for me, man. They got those roller coasters that go out over the edge now, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. I don't want to be that guy in CNN. Yeah, but it's a different vibe. I'll do a 3-day and 4-day. I like the 3 and 4-day crowds, depending on the destination.
Well, and because those people that are there to drink want to laugh.
It's a party vibe.
They aren't necessarily there to hear Elton John songs.
It depends on the destination.
Yes.
Like I won't do a 3-day out of Miami to Nassau. I hate that crowd. They hate me. I don't do well.
Okay.
It's not a good vibe. It's a real clubbish crowd.
Okay.
They go to the club and dance and hang out, and they're just not into live comedy. They're not into shows.
My show that I do is not a club show. I don't do club show. I don't do clubs. I've had people try to get me to do clubs.
You should be presented as a major. Yeah.
Well, but our show is. Thank you, Eric Swalwell.
That's awkward. That was actually the chair. Believe it or not.
I do believe you.
I know
because I'm in the room. Centrally, I know it wasn't, or else I might have fainted.
I've never had that happen before. All right.
Where were we? Oh, we were talking about crowds. Yes.
Right.
I'm not a club show. I'm a sit down and watch my show information.
Yeah.
I do corporate events where it is basically a club show where they're not really watching or listening. I'm just part of the atmosphere.
Right.
And that's all right because if I'm doing a corporate event, I'm probably getting paid 2 or 3 times what I normally get.
Sure,
and I'm like, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Sign that check.
Yeah.
Sing songs, cash check, go home.
I got a really high quote. If they take it, I'm like, okay.
Listen, I love those shows where several times I've gotten a call for a show and I do my research and I take the ball and I throw it as far down the field as I possibly can.
Okay.
And there are times when they've caught it quickly. I'm like, shoot, I left money on the table. I hate it when I do that.
I've done that too. Before I made an offer really high, and they go, no problem. You're like, son of a bitch. And then I'm like, I didn't even want to do this gig. I go, I'll shoot really high. And I could have shot higher.
Right. Yeah. I actually have a, not to cross promote, but I have a product that I created called Askmoe.
Nobody watches this.
That's true. Askmoe.app, Askmoe.app, okay. And it's for performers to figure out if a job is worth their money or not.
What was it called?
Askmoe.app, Askmoe.app.
This is your thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's for performers like us who your booker calls or agent calls or presenter calls and says, hey, I want your show. And you're like, okay, let me get back to you. And within 3 minutes with a couple of clicks, you can find out if you're going to actually make money on the job or not.
That's great.
And it's a great tool. We just launched recently and the response has been amazing. People are loving it. And the reason why myself and my business partner Gary and I created it was so that other performers could learn how to create wealth.
Right.
Because so many times somebody says, they throw out a number and you think, that sounds like a lot of money.
Right.
But then you go, I got to get myself there. I got to pay for gas. There's a rental. If you're a show like mine, you've got people involved that you've got to travel and pay.
You learn the hard way. I learned the hard way a few times where I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And you just figure out everything from mic, stand.
Yes.
So like you were talking about the phone call earlier.
Yeah.
You got to have all this stuff covered. And it's got to be in the rider.
And so in Askmoe.app, you're able to, in a few clicks, look at all your costs and your expenses.
Right.
And we feel that you should be taking home at least 35% or more of your total top line price.
Right.
If you're below 25%, you need to either ask for more money or adjust your expenses so that you're over that 35% mark. Because once you start doing that and you're like, okay, this feels good, it works on a lot of different levels. It builds your confidence
Right.
so that you can actually stand for your product and your value.
Right.
And you need to be able to be flexible, which is a
Sure.
great thing in the tool. There's a configurator where if, like for me, I've got 4 different shows that I can do. And each one of those 4 shows has everything from solo and tracks up to full stage of
orchestra
people
stuff, yeah.
and orchestra and whatnot. So in the configuration drop down that you've created, I can quickly drop in which version of the show that I'm doing, and then I can adjust my costs for per diem and travel and whatnot. And within a matter of minutes, you've got an answer as to what you're going to make on that job.
Right. That's smart because that's smart because one of the when you start out, you just want to kind of make money. This happens with comics a lot. You used to just fill the calendar. It was about filling the calendar. Like, hey, I'm booked up. Then after a while, you realize, you know what? I need to make more money. I need to make something. I can't, because for a while you're thinking just breaking even almost. You're like, oh, car expense, flight, whatever. Okay, it's covered. But then as time goes by, at some point you have to start to charge them for what the act is worth and what you put in to get to that point in
Correct.
your career. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
it's
that's
the product you built. You know?
Right. Again, it's that thing of it looks effortless, but okay,
Right.
At the end of the day, I've got to be look, if you're getting paid $1,000 for a job, you need to be taking home more than $350.
Right.
If you're not, you're off.
Right.
You know, if you're spending all your money on expenses to get yourself to and from, something's not right, and you're not ever going to end up with a retirement fund and an investment account and a house. And
you talk about building a career here,
right?
Not just booking a gig,
right?
This is long term how to build a career to sustain,
right? What we say in our company is that we want to retire the trope of the starving artist,
right?
We want to create thriving artists who are able to support their family and get their parents or the people off their back that said, you'll never make this, you'll never make any money doing this. It's like, well, you're wrong,
right?
So
when I got engaged to my wife, who I'm divorced from now, I was already doing stand-up for 12 years. I was on the road. I've been doing stand-up. And her father, a very sweet man. Great. I still get along with the family and her pretty well. But he every time I came over before we got married, he would give me more flyers and information about other companies that were hiring things, UPS and all that stuff. This is a good career. And I'm like, I think I'm okay. I'm okay. And he stopped harassing me about it, so to speak, when we were married for a year, and we never asked him for any money. And she was like, "Why?" He's like, "Why don't you ask us for any money?" I go, "Because I make a living at this. I'm not just winging it. I got it down."
But that's sort of a product of that era.
Sure,
100%. My dad loved me, but never really understood my passion for this.
Right.
I was on the road with Barry Manilow for 2 years, and sorry, I just dropped a name. Pick that up.
We used to call that dropping keys.
Yes.
Hey, drop your keys. Oh, sorry, Mike.
And I came back from the European leg of the tour, and my dad picked me up at LAX and was driving me to my place, and he said, "So, tour's gonna end at some point. What are you gonna do after that?" I'm like, can we enjoy the fact that I just came home from Europe
in the car from the airport?
Yes, it was terrible, but yeah, I mean, and when I started this Elton thing, he really wasn't too sure, but it was a few years in. When I started the show, it was me and a piano playing very small things and doing anything just to do the show, just to get it under my belt. And about 5 years in, we did our first symphony show. And my parents were living in Atlanta with me at the time. I flew them out to California, to Palm Desert, where we were doing the show. And they came to the rehearsal and were there for the rehearsal and the sound check and then the evening. And because I'm originally from LA, the McCallum holds like 2,000 people, and the show was completely sold out. And I had a large percentage of the people that I knew from LA that had come out to see the show.
Right.
And of course, these were all people that knew my parents as well, because we'd all lived in California for so many years. And during that day, as they watched sound check and then rehearsal with the orchestra and the show, my parents saw me in charge of my band,
right,
and the stage manager and a lighting director and a sound guy, and then working with the conductor and the 50-piece orchestra, and then saw this show happen,
And they saw the whole thing, beginning to end, yeah.
And then afterwards, the kiss and cry area with the pictures and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I had scheduled an after party in town at a restaurant, and I had gotten out of makeup, and I was in the car driving my parents from the theater to the restaurant, and my mom was she had such a great time.
Oh,
she
good.
was so excited, and my dad, a Lutheran minister and clinical psychologist and computer guy, who could be loquacious at times, but not very effusive with praise, said, well, it was a very interesting day, and it's sort of stumbling. He said, well, I guess I'm proud of you. And I was like, don't crash the car. Don't crash the car. Just.
I guess I'm proud of you. That's still a victory. That's pretty good.
I took it.
Yeah.
Right,
because you know your dad. You know what I mean? You know how
Yeah.
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 That's great, man. Congratulations. That's a great moment. That's a really good moment.
Yeah.
But that's cool that he got to see everything that went into it. It kind of was a lot of stuff that we talked about earlier today. There's more that goes into this than just getting up there and putting on a hat.
When I moved to, although I do have great hats.
I'm sure you have some great Elton John.
About 20 years ago, I moved from LA to Atlanta to take over a brand new performing arts center. It was going to be a great new chapter for me to stay in the arts but not be performing all the time. It was going to be a more regular job. Well, the people that created the center turned out to be really terrible people. And the job, after being pursued for over a year, fell apart within 2 days.
Okay.
And I had closed all the doors in LA. I was planning on bringing people out to Atlanta to be a part of this thing. And I was literally left at the bottom of a very deep hole.
Yeah.
And it was bad. It was really, really bad. And my family then, though, got to watch me rebuild my life from nothing.
Right.
And, people who don't know what we do, like your father-in-law, they think, well, you just sit around all day. And it's like, no, I'm hustling.
Yeah.
And so my parents and my family got to watch me go from less than zero at the bottom of a very, very deep hole to out of that hole within 6 months, and then rebuild my life and then build this show. And it's very different when people see it happening in real time.
Yeah, that's good.
And are a party to what they're witnessing. And when they come to those first shows and they see it grow, so that by the time 5 years in with a symphony orchestra, my dad was like, oh, this is something.
Yeah, this is the thing. You built something.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's an interesting segue to, what are we doing on time? All right, we're good. We're good. Are you good?
I have nowhere to be.
Okay. I was going to kind of talk about, there's two parts to this, and this touches on both of it. One is performers that come on ships now, or even start this career. I always equate it to people coming from digital media into live entertainment. Being able to do, you're talking about having 60 seconds funny. Well, that's one thing. Even having 60 minutes funny is another thing. Being able to do it numerous times in a week is another thing, and to be able to establish and build a career around it is another thing. Which brings me to where we're at now is 30 years I've been in this business. I'm sure you're around that time.
I've been a professional actor with a union card for almost 50 years.
Okay, wow. Okay, Jesus, you look great.
61.
Holy crap, you look dynamite. You look good.
Thanks.
It's sometimes I always call it I'm just surviving, but as the business goes, it changes so many different ways, so many ups and downs. Like comedy is a great example of it. There's certain things you can do, you can't do. The sense of humor is subjective, and it flows. So you've got to constantly change and adapt and move to build a career and still be around 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
And I think those all come together with what I was talking about, somebody being able to do a whole week of shows,
right,
and to build a 30-year career.
Yeah.
There's a difference between having a great show, but to build a business out of it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm curious to see where we're moving forward because there's so many people are into digital media. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I started in the original digital media when I was a kid doing just regular TV and film stuff.
Right.
But now I don't understand the concept of an influencer.
Right.
I understand it. I understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
But back in the day, we used to call those people LEMPs.
LEMPs?
Lower echelon media personalities.
Really? That's interesting.
What was Paris Hilton famous for?
Yeah,
being famous.
Being
famous.
Yeah.
The Kardashians, they were famous for being famous. There are I would argue that someone like a Jack LaLanne was the original influencer, or a very early on influencer, because he wasn't an actor.
Yeah.
He wasn't selling stuff so much in the beginning. What he was selling was fitness.
Right.
He was influencing people for good.
Sure.
I'm sure there are plenty of other instances where people became influencers. I think in the modern media age, in the 70s, I think Suzanne Summers became an influencer.
Richard Simmons, maybe?
Richard Simmons.
Okay.
But yes.
Same type of vibe?
Jane Fonda.
Because they turned it into it. Well, Jane Fonda kind of was an actress then.
But when she started her fitness studios, she was not working.
Right. Well, that's a good point, yeah.
She started that because...
And that was a big deal at the time. People forget if you're not our age. You don't remember how big a deal Jane Fonda Fitness was.
Yeah. And so those are the people that were influencers in that respect. And now you have people that... I met a woman in Atlanta. She was giving me a massage, a real massage. And I talked to my massage therapist. With all the work that I do, as physical as I am, I need that. And my regular guy wasn't available anyway. And so I was trying to find out what her story is, because I'm always interested in people and what their journey is and whatnot. And I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, well, I really want to be an influencer. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean for you? Well, I want to, help people be healthy and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? Yeah. And she was very hard pressed to tell me what that meant.
Sure.
And then she said that she wanted to move to LA. And I'm like, why do you want to move to LA? Well, that's where it's all happening. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's happening on here.
Yeah, right.
This is where it's happening.
Yeah.
Because you can be anywhere and influence. There are people that travel the world to influence.
Yeah.
So, again, unless you have something worth saying or worth hearing, why do I want to spend an hour with you in a theater as a comedian or as a singer?
Right.
And why do I want to spend a minute or 3 minutes with you online as an influencer?
Right.
And, SAG has got all these influencer contracts now. And I'm like, why? What is,
it's a mark. Like, I'm intrigued, first of all, when influencers try to take what they do and then they get booked in comedy clubs.
Yes.
It happens a lot. And the clubs have gotten smart about it. Like, Zanies is brilliant the way they do it. Because an influencer can come in, this is a great example, and they can sell out 2 shows Friday night. And they'll do a great job. But they can't carry a week.
No.
They can't carry, because they're not a name. But they can fill the room on a Friday. And I live in the Valley, which is really, there's influencers everywhere. My daughters are huge fans of these. We'll have dinner. Oh my God, that's Tommy Fred.
Yes.
Who? Tommy Fred's here. He's sitting over there. But I get, and they have millions of followers and they're making millions of dollars. They're making a lot of money. But what I find hilarious is when influencers get annoyed when you don't know who they are. And it happens a lot with me because I don't know who the hell they are. You know what I mean? I just don't. My daughter will be like, you don't know who that is? I go, no. He's got 10 million followers. And fine. All right.
Good for you.
Good for him. That's awesome. But I shouldn't have to know this guy or go ape shit because he's in the same room with me.
Yeah.
But they get mad. It's a lot of, they'll walk, my daughters work in restaurants. They'll come in, they won't get special treatment. They're like, dude, I don't need this. I'm an influencer. I'll go online and bury you guys. And you're like, well, how do you have that much power?
When I started as a kid, I lived in Orange County, and my parents, because I was too young to drive, would drive me up to LA for auditions and work. And God bless them for their willingness to do it, to take me out of school, to all the stuff they did. And there would be days when, I would leave school a little bit early, we'd drive up to LA, and I'd do 3 or 4 commercial auditions or callbacks, and then we'd drive back home to Orange County.
Right.
And so during those years, there were people in LA that were actors, but there were only a few movie studios. There were only 3 networks. There were a couple of local stations that did things, but it was a smaller pool. And then it grew when there became cable channels.
Yeah.
And then the cable started to grow, and now we have streaming and now we have influencing. It's kind of like those rings have grown out, and you could argue that there are people. You could argue that there are people that might have more followers than Tom Cruise, but you can say Tom Cruise and everybody knows who he is.
Sure.
And we're getting fewer and fewer real movie stars, people that can open a film.
Tom Cruise might be the last big.
Brad Pitt.
He's big. Yeah, right.
I think that there are some directors that can still open. I think that Tarantino can still open.
Sure. Oh yeah.
But it's the to a certain extent, the studios have sort of taken back what they used to be. The studio system where the studio opened the
No, you're right. That's a great analogy. It's a great way to bring it up.
But it's also the streaming services that have sort of taken over, although the business models now are so detrimental to the performers. There's no money left for
the
anybody.
contracts are really bad. And this last strike, they didn't do anybody any favors with the the AI stuff.
Yeah,
the AI riders are not good. They're bad.
Again,
in fact, I don't know how. I mean, for years before I did ships, I was doing TV and film in LA.
Yeah.
I was a blue collar actor.
So was I.
A living. SAG every year, union. I got my insurance.
Yep.
I don't know how you can do that now. In fact, I know guys that have left the business and gone and done it. You can't.
Well, and after the great pause of 2020, so many people left the business because they couldn't resustain.
And that combined with the strikes and stuff is really, it's made it very difficult out there.
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, I still get checks from projects that I've done.
Sure.
And it's funny how. I love mailbox money. It's the best thing
it's the
in the whole
greatest.
world. I love it so much. But yeah, projects that I did years
Plus,
ago.
you did some Disney stuff, right?
I did.
That's good. That's good money, man. That's good mailbox money.
When I did Aladdin, I came in. Disney is notorious for using different performers and using voices and whatever, and they used to get in big trouble because people weren't compensated, and then things changed.
Right.
Without going fully into it, I did some work on Aladdin. They ended up using my performance in a certain way, and my voice, but I didn't have to get screen credit.
Right.
I was disappointed at the time, but didn't realize that I would end up in the royalty pool. Right. And I still remember that day in '95 when I got the first.
Oh, dude, that first one had to be.
Dude, the VHS of Aladdin at the time was the highest grossing VHS ever.
Right.
Before Titanic came out. I have friends who were in Titanic who bought houses.
Right.
And they were just like background non-featured people. But they did so many days on it, and those films made so much money.
Good for them, man. I love that.
Oh,
Always.
I do not begrudge anyone a brass farthing, including 100%. The influencers that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Good for you. If you're able to generate money, good for you.
Good for you, yeah.
But I was living in Venice. And I remember opening the check as I was walking from the mailbox to my apartment.
You know the exact moment where you were.
Oh!
I bet.
Listen, when you see that many zeros on a check with your name on it, I literally screamed. Like, my neighbor's cat was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
I mean, it was a truckload of money.
Right.
And it was tasty. Oh,
yeah, it was a crazy. There's an old story, but I can't remember the actress that was moving from Boston to L.A. Remember, or the other way around. She moved from L.A. to Boston. And she was down on her luck, and things were, and she got all the way home, and she got her mail, and she was getting settled in, and she opened up, and she was fucking broke. She was totally out of money, and opened up and got just under $500,000. And she's like, what? And she looked into it. And, yeah, that's your.
What was the project?
It was a huge Disney thing.
Damn.
But she had a major part in it,
Yeah.
and didn't realize she was going to get that much money kicked back from
Yeah.
it. It was 6 digits.
Yeah.
A 6-digit check out of the blue.
I got that 5-digit check was just, it was stupid.
Yeah.
It felt so good.
Yeah, that's great.
I was like, woo!
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yes. Yeah.
Dude, all right, let's wrap it up.
Okay.
This was great.
Thanks.
I can't thank you enough for doing this. That was everything I hoped we could talk about. We did. Want to right to camera, plug whatever you want to plug for the 3 people to watch my podcast.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. AlmostEltonJohn.com, Askmoe.app, Askmoe.app for all you performers out there. And, live with passion and impact.
Yeah, right on. Thank you, Craig. Thanks.
Cheers, man.
All right, buddy. You're still watching? That's amazing. Nobody does that. Nobody, but you did. That means you want more. Pick one of these clips. Go for it. I dare you. Hey, also follow one of those social media thingies.